Hi, it's Leah from the Wells County Public Library here today with another instructional video for one of our to-go kits. Our latest kit is going to be the faux stained glass kit. It's going to be available here to be picked up at the library from August 31st through September 19th while supplies last. So let's see what's going to be inside your kit. We have one picture frame with a glass front, one small paint palette, a tub of clear Elmer's glue, a small container of black puffy paint that's going to act as our lead in our stained glass, four little tubs of food coloring. It's just regular food coloring, yellow, blue, green, and red, and they're labeled on the top so you know which is which. One little paintbrush, and a few toothpicks for mixing your food coloring into your glue to make your stained glass. All right, a few other things that you're going to want to gather from around the house before you start. You're going to want something to protect your table from any spills because food coloring can stain. So you'll need like maybe a sheet of newspaper or a trash bag, something just to protect your table. Then you're going to want some paper towels because it could get messy. You're going to also want a pattern to trace or pencil and paper to create your own pattern. I printed off a pattern earlier for mine, and you can see that I've already traced the outline, but we're going to do that in just a little bit. Or you can take the paper that comes in the picture frame that's in the back of it. Looks like this. I took it on the back and I traced the pattern for the one that you saw earlier. I don't know if you can see it from here, but I made my own pattern for this design earlier. And then you might want some tape to hold your pattern steady to your piece of glass, or you might want to take tape and trim the edges of your glass because it's sharp to keep it from poking you. That's up to you. All right, so let's get started. All right, as I mentioned earlier, there were a few things that you needed to gather around from the house before you started. One thing that I forgot to mention is that you're going to want a cup of water to rinse your brush out in between your different colors. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get down to the craft. Okay, so with your picture frame, it will come with a piece of paper in it. You can make your own design on the back of that piece of paper, like I did for this one, but you don't have to. You can also just print it off of the computer like I did, and then you'll take your puffy paint and you'll trace your design. If you are right-handed, you're going to want to start in the upper left-hand corner and work your way down. And if you're left-handed, you're going to want to start in the upper right-hand corner and work your way down so that your hand is not resting in the puffy paint as you go. Then you're going to let this completely dry before you do the next step. You do not want this to be wet, and you want the puffy paint to be fairly raised because it's going to keep your stained glass colors from running into each other. So you want these ridges to be fairly raised. So I took my clear glue. I filled my little paint pots with the clear glue. Then I took my food coloring. This is the yellow, even though it looks more like an orangish red. I promise it is yellow. Mixed it in with a toothpick. Kept adding in color until I was satisfied with the shade that I had. Maybe a little bit more. And yeah, that looks good. I think I'll deal with that. That'll be good. So I started painting in each little petal. I realized as I was painting them in, and you want to make sure you put not too much, not too little. You don't want to overflow the black outline, but you also don't want to underfill it. But I realized as I went along with the colored pattern underneath, it was really hard to tell if I was getting adequate coverage or not. So I decided to move my glass over to the plain paper on the side so that I could see what I was doing more clearly. And I just continued filling in the petals. I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me fill in every single petal. That is not necessary. So in a very little bit here, I'm going to stop and we're going to fast forward. Okay, so I realized after I got all my petals done that they were all exactly the same color, and I didn't really like that. So I went in and added a little bit more food coloring to my glue, and I added highlights to some, but not all of my petals to give them a little more variation. Next, I went on to make my center of the flower, where I added red into the food dye to get a nice deep orange. And I painted in the center of the sunflower. So obviously I finished painting the center of my sunflower, and now I'm getting ready to make my green for the leaves. I had a little trouble with the toothpick sticking to the table because we are using glue and not paint, and that's pretty obvious. When you leave things sit around, they stick to whatever they're laying on. So I thought I had a good color of green going here. I had mixed it up. I took my paintbrush. I just tried to decide where I was going to start. And then I took the plunge and put the green on, and realized rather quickly that it was rather an anemic color of green. It looked like my sunflower was dying, so I dumped a whole bunch more green into my glue to give myself a deeper green shade, and decided to see what that looked like. Well, that turned out much better than the previous one. Still a little light, but much improved. Now at least it looks like the plant isn't about to die. So I painted the rest of the leaves with that color. After finishing painting the leaves, I realized I still wasn't completely satisfied with the color. So I went back in and added some darker green streaks using the toothpick. And I mixed the dark green in with the leaves, trying to get a deeper, richer color than I had already on my leaves. And it turned out okay. I'm going to fast forward to the end so that you can see what it ended up looking like there. So I finished coloring in my leaves and my stem, and I'm pretty happy with it until I realized, I have green in my petal. So I took the toothpick and wiped the green out of my petal. And the moral of this story is that as long as it's still wet, you can fix it. So I fixed it. If you have a similar problem, you can fix it too, just as long as it's still wet. Okay, so here I'm mixing up the blue, the final color for this project. And I ended up not mixing up enough blue. If you're going to do an area as large as this, you're going to want to make several little of your container areas into this color, because one was not enough, and I ended up having to make more later on. Wasn't the end of the world, but trying to get the colors to match took a little bit of time. So I'm going to fast forward here, and we're going to speed things up. Alright, as you can see, we are nearly finished here, using a toothpick to get into some of the smaller areas because I didn't want to overflow to areas I'd already painted. And we'll speed it up again and we'll be finished. Okay, so all that remains for me to do is finish up the blue, let everything dry completely, and put a piece of white paper behind the glass in the frame. Again, these to-go kits will be available from August 31st through September 19th while supplies last. So hurry into the library and pick up your kit today. Have a great day. Bye.